Hi students, I am Dr. Bhavana. In this lecture, we are going to deal with neural control and coordination. So what is coordination? Coordination, it is the process in which two or more organs interact with each other and complement the functions of one another. So which system helps in this coordination? The neural system plays an important role in this quick coordination mechanisms. So the neural system is mainly composed of highly specialized cells. These highly specialized cells are called as neurons. These neurons, they detect and transmit the nerve impulses to all the organs. So neurons, they are highly specialized cells. They play an important role in this neural system. The neural system is mainly divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So the nervous system is divided into central nervous system CNS as well as peripheral nervous system. CNS, it is mainly composed of brain as well as spinal cord. Brain and spinal cord. Whereas peripheral nervous system, it comprises all the nerves that are associated with the central nervous system. Means what are all the nerves that are associated with brain and spinal cord? These all the nerves are belonging to peripheral nervous system. All the nerves that are associated with the CNS. Initially, the peripheral nervous system is divided into efferent fibers as well as efferent fibers. What are efferent fibers? These transmit the nerve impulses from the organs to the CNS. See A. For easy remembrance, see A as well as E. These transmit impulses to the CNS. From tissues, they transmit to the CNS. Whereas efferent fibers, they transmit from CNS to the tissues. These are from tissues to CNS. This is from CNS to the tissues. This peripheral nervous system is furthermore divided into three types. The first type is somatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. The third one is visceral nervous system. First, initially somatic. These transmit the impulses from the CNS to the skeletal muscles. You all know about skeletal muscles. How they play an important role in? They play an important role in locomotion. Suppose if you want to do some exercise or if you want to walk, anything, those impulses are transmitted by somatic nervous system. They are from CNS, from central nervous system, that is from brain as well as from spinal cord to the skeletal system. Next comes to autonomic nervous system. These transmit impulses again from CNS to smooth muscles. Smooth muscles means where they are present. Smooth muscles are mainly present in stomach as well as intestine. This is skeletal muscle, somatic nervous system. Autonomic to smooth muscles. Where are smooth muscles present? They are present in stomach, intestine. Like that, few organs, smooth muscles are present. Whereas visceral nervous system, these transmit impulses from CNS to visceral organs. What are the visceral organs which we know? Eyes, ears. These all constitutes the visceral organs. See, in visceral, from CNS to visceral organs as well as from visceral organs to CNS back. Here both sides these impulses are transmitted. That is from CNS to viscera as well as from viscera to CNS. So this is about the nervous systems, that is central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. See, the human neural system is mainly composed of neurons. They are the specialized cells. They help in detection and transmission of nerve impulses from CNS to all the organs. In simple lower invertebrates, means like animals and all, very simple nervous system is present. But in humans, it is very complex system. That is, first it is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. In central nervous system, it is again basically the brain and spinal cord. In peripheral nervous system, all the nerves that are associated with CNS, means what are all the nerves that are associated with brain and spinal cord, that constitutes to peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is again divided into efferent fibers as well as efferent fibers. Efferent fibers, they'll ask in the NEET, what are efferent fibers, how they play an important role. They transmit the nerve impulses from the tissues to the brain, that is CNS. Efferent fibers, they carry from CNS to the tissues. This is efferent and efferent. Then again the peripheral nervous system is divided into three parts, that is somatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system and visceral nervous system. This somatic nervous system transmits the impulses from CNS to the skeletal muscles of the body, any skeletal muscles, somatic nervous system. Any smooth muscles in the body, that is through autonomic nervous system. Visceral nervous system. This visceral nervous system from CNS to the viscera, as to all the visceral organs, as well as from visceral organs back to the CNS. These are the three. See, again here autonomic nervous system is again divided into two. That is, this autonomic is divided into sympathetic as well as parasympathetic. What is sympathetic and parasympathetic? Sympathetic is fight and flight responses of the body. Fight and flight responses. Sympathetic. Parasympathetic is rest and digest activities. See, this is self-explanatory. Fight and flight. Suppose we are in some anxiety or we are feared by seeing some horror movies like that. This sympathetic nervous system plays an important role. That is fight and flight responses. Whereas rest and digest, when you are relaxed and when you are watching a movie happily, and then this rest and digest activities when you sleep, then this parasympathetic plays an important role. Sympathetic is fight and flight responses of the body, whereas parasympathetic rest and digest activities. So this is about the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Next, we'll deal about the neurons. Neurons are highly specialized cells which play important role in this neural system. We'll deal about the parts of a neuron. Neuron is mainly composed of three. That is, first one is dendrites, cell body, second one cell body, third one axon. First I will depict in a diagram. So this is the cell body. Whereas these fibers which project out from the cell body, they are known as dendrites. Here, one nucleus is present in the cell body. Only one nucleus is present. There are many Nissl granules which are present in the cytoplasm of the cell body. What are the substances which are present in the cell body? Those are Nissl granules. As well as cytoplasm is present. From the cell body, there arises a structure that is known as axon. These axons end in specialized structures like bulb-like structures called as synaptic knobs. Axons, they terminate. How axons terminate is by synaptic knobs. What are synaptic knobs? They are bulb-like structures which arise from the axon. This full axon is covered by myelin sheath. What is the structure which covers the axon? So that is myelin sheath. Around the myelin sheath there is a Schwann cell that is present. This is an important NEET question. Remember, in between the myelin sheath, I did not draw like this full myelin sheath. Why? There is gaps present between the myelin sheath. So they'll ask, what are the gaps that are present in between two myelin sheaths? That is nodes of Ranvier. They are called as nodes of Ranvier. Because here in middle, myelin sheath is absent at these places. These are the called as nodes of Ranvier. So first we'll deal about the cell body. In the cell body, there is one nucleus present as well as numerous Nissl granules. They are present in the cytoplasm of the cell body. These are the dendrites. What are the structures? Fibers which project out from the cell body. Those are known as dendrites. Now what is the use of these dendrites? They transmit impulses to the cell body. See, from many other tissues, these transmit impulses towards the cell body. From different organs. From different organs, these transmit these dendrites to the cell body. They are processed in this cell body. Again, from the cell body, they are carried back to the tissues. They are again carried back to the organs by the axon. From axon. What is the use of axon now? It transmits impulses from the cell body again back to the organs. These dendrites, they pass here as well as axons. Again they pass to the organs. So this is about the myelin sheath. The axon is covered by myelin sheath. In between those two, there are Nissl granules which are, there are nodes of Ranvier. These are the gaps which are present. And this is Schwann cell. Schwann cells, this lines the myelin sheath. Axon is ending, it terminates at bulb-like structures called as synaptic knobs. So this is about the structure of a neuron. Initially, if myelin sheath is present, then they are called as myelinated fibers. If myelin sheath is absent on the axon, then they are called as unmyelinated. So where we find this myelinated? Myelinated is generally seen in spinal nerves as well as cranial nerves. Spinal as well as cranial nerves. Whereas unmyelinated, it is seen in somatic neural system as well as autonomic neural system. Myelinated is seen in spinal nerves, cranial nerves. Unmyelinated is seen in somatic and autonomic. Before we have dealt, somatic means to the skeletal muscles. Autonomic is to smooth muscles. So, myelin sheath is lined in, means spinal nerves as well as cranial nerves. That is in spinal cord as well as brain. We find myelin sheath. whereas rest of the nerves we see unmyelinated. So this is about the myelinated and unmyelinated. Next, so neurons are again divided into three types. Neurons are mainly divided into three types, that is unipolar neurons, bipolar neurons, as well as multipolar neurons. Where do we find these unipolar neurons? Unipolar neurons we find them in the embryonic stage, whereas bipolar neurons we see them in the retina of the eye. See, they'll ask this in the NEET, where are bipolar neurons found? Where you'll find the bipolar neurons? Then they'll say retina of the eye, embryonic stage, as well as they'll ask in the cerebrum. Then you should answer bipolar neurons are seen in the retina of the eye. And multipolar neurons, where do we find these multipolar neurons? We find them in the cerebrum, that is in the brain. Before what we have seen, that is multipolar neuron, means many dendrites are present, many dendrites we see, but only one axon is seen. Whereas in bipolar, we see one axon as well as one dendrite. Whereas in unipolar, we see only one axon. So again I will give you brief about the types of neurons. So neurons are divided into unipolar, bipolar, multipolar. In unipolar neurons, only one axon is present. There are no dendrites. Whereas in bipolar, there is one axon as well as one dendrite. In multipolar, we find many dendrites but only one axon. See, in these three, common thing is we find one axon, whereas here you don't find any dendrite. Here we find only one. Here many dendrites are present. So what are the examples where they are present? In embryonic stage, that is in embryos, we find only unipolar neurons. Whereas in the retina of the eye, we see bipolar neurons. In cerebrum, that is brain, before I have dealt with the structure of a neuron, there many dendrites are present. That is present in the brain, that is cerebrum. This is about the type of neurons. Next we will deal with generation and conduction of the nerve impulse. Generation and conduction of nerve impulse. And conduction of nerve impulse. Neurons, basically they are called as excitable cells. They'll ask you in the NEET, which structures are called as excitable cells? Means you should answer neurons are called as excitable cells. Why they are called as excitable cells? Because their membranes are always in a polarized state. Their membranes are present in polarized state. When a neuron is not conducting any impulse, means when it is in resting state, when it is not conducting any impulse, this is inside of the axon, this is outside of the axon. Generally nerve impulses are transmitted through axon. So this is inside of the axon, this is outside of the axon. When a neuron is not conducting any impulse, when it is in resting state, potassium is more permeable into the cell. Potassium. Whereas sodium, which is present inside the cell, is more permeable to outside the cell. Means it will move out of the cell. Sodium. So what happens? There will be buildup of more of positive pressure in the outside, positive pressure, because sodium from inside it will be coming outside. So what will happen? Outside there will be more of positive pressure which is created, whereas inside when potassium goes into the cell, there will be negative pressure which is created inside the cell. For every 3 sodium that is pumped out of the cell, 2 potassium will go into the cell. Means for every 3 sodium which enters outside the cell, 2 potassium will go inside. This is known as sodium potassium pump. Sodium potassium pump. 3 sodium transmitted outside to the cell, 2 potassium into the cell. There will be creation of positive pressure outside the cell, inside negative. This ionic gradient, means this electric potential difference between outside of the axon as well as inside of the axon, is known as resting membrane potential. Resting membrane potential. Why it is known as resting membrane potential? Because it is in resting state. No stimulus is generated. Resting membrane potential. This is about resting membrane potential. Next we will deal with when a neuron generates an action impulse. Then it is known as action potential. Again, this is inside of the membrane, inside of the axon. This is outside the axon. Now what will happen? Here potassium will move into the cell. Here potassium will move outside the cell. It will move out, potassium. Whereas sodium will move in. So what will happen here? More of positive pressure is built up inside the cell now. Here outside more positive will be there. Here inside more positive, and outside when potassium moves out into the cell, then it will create negative pressure outside the cell. This is a depolarized state. This state is known as depolarization. Depolarized state. This depolarized state, so when the stimulus is generated again, this sodium will move into the cell, whereas potassium will move outside the cell. This polarity is known as reverse polarity. Reverse polarity. This ionic gradient, electric potential difference between inside the cell as well as outside, is known as action potential. Action potential. This is about generation and conduction of nerve impulse. First, initially, there are 2 states, that is resting state as well as action potential. Means here in resting state, when a neuron is in resting state, when it is not conducting any impulse, then sodium potassium pump will be created. That is 3 sodium will move into outside the cell, 2 potassium will move into the cell. So what will happen when potassium moves into the cell? There is more of negative pressure that is created inside the cell. Outside more of positive pressure is created. Why positive pressure is created outside the cell is because sodium will move out. So much of sodium will go out into the cell. So positive pressure is created. This electric potential difference between the 2 membranes in resting state. In resting state is important. Then it is called as resting membrane potential. Whereas sodium will move into the cell in action potential. So these potassium will move outside the cell. Then there is negative pressure that is created. Here positive pressure is created outside. Here positive pressure is created inside. This state is known as depolarized state. Means here reverse polarity takes place. That is, sodium will move into the cell while as potassium will move outside the cell. This electric potential difference between the two membranes is known as action potential. Means here their stimulus is generated. Here stimulus is not generated. So this is about the generation and conduction of nerve impulse. Next we will deal with transmission of nerve impulse. Transmission of nerve impulse. How nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to other neuron. Transmission of nerve impulse from one neuron to other neuron takes place through junctions called as synapses. Synapses. There are two types of synapses, that is electrical synapse as well as chemical synapse. Electrical synapse, it does not take place in human beings. It is very rare in human beings. This is a rare one, but this is the faster one. Immediately within seconds from one neuron to other neuron, impulse is transmitted. Whereas in chemical synapse, this takes place mostly in humans, but this is slower when compared to electrical synapse. In electrical synapse, directly from presynaptic membrane, from one neuron presynaptic membrane to other neuron postsynaptic membrane, this electrical synapse takes place very fast. Within directly it will go, impulse will go. But in chemical synapses, it won't go directly. It will go through neurotransmitters, means chemicals, through neurotransmitters. This is about electrical and chemical synapse. First, how this synapse, what is synapse actually? This is, before I have showed you in the parts of a neuron that there is an axon ends in bulb-like structures. They end in bulb-like structures called as synaptic knobs. So these synaptic knobs, they are covered outside by a membrane known as presynaptic membrane. Presynaptic membrane. In the synaptic knobs, there are many vesicles which are present. These vesicles are called as synaptic vesicles. These synaptic vesicles in turn have numerous chemicals. These chemicals are called as neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters. And this is synaptic cleft which is present. What is synaptic cleft? Cleft means what? There is some space that is present. So this is synaptic cleft. In other neuron, from one neuron to other neuron, there should be some transmission. This is through synaptic cleft. In the other neuron, there are many receptors which are present. These receptors they receive the signals from one neuron to other neuron. These receptors, they receive the signals, means they receive these neurotransmitters. This other neuron is lined by postsynaptic membrane. Postsynaptic membrane. So next we are going to deal in detail about the CNS, central nervous system, that is brain. Brain is the main control and command system of our body. It plays an important role in voluntary as well as involuntary actions. Means voluntary means which you know, which you do, like exercise and all, walking, exercise, locomotion, everything this brain plays an important role. Whereas in involuntary also it plays an important role, like in heart rate as well as respiratory rate, everything is maintained by the brain. Brain is mainly outer layer, it is covered by meninges. If there is inflammation of meninges, then it leads to a disease known as meningitis. Meningitis usually occur due to some bacterial or viral infections. Then we see symptoms like neck rigidity, severe headache, like that we see in meningitis. Means outer layer which is covering the brain is meninges. If there is inflammation of meninges, then it leads to meningitis. The full outer layer is covered by meninges. Again, the brain, mainly the outer layer, is called as dura mater. Middle layer is known as arachnoid membrane, whereas inner layer is pia mater. They'll ask you in the sequence which is the outermost layer of the brain. That is dura mater. This is outermost layer. This is the middle layer, arachnoid membrane. The innermost layer is pia mater. These are the three coverings of the brain. Again, the brain is divided into three parts. That is forebrain, midbrain. Second one is midbrain. The third is hindbrain. The forebrain has three parts, that is cerebrum, thalamus. Third one is hypothalamus. Cerebrum, thalamus as well as hypothalamus. Midbrain, it is the smallest part of the brain. It has only cerebral aqueduct. I will show you in a diagram. This is cerebral aqueduct. In hindbrain, there is pons, cerebellum as well as medulla. Medulla oblongata. I will depict you in a picture. The outermost layer means which constitutes the majority of the brain is cerebrum, which is a part of the forebrain. This is cerebrum. Cerebrum is divided into two parts, that is right cerebral hemisphere as well as left cerebral hemisphere. Cerebral hemispheres. Cerebrum constitutes the majority of the brain. It is divided into right and left cerebral hemispheres. These two hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. This cerebrum plays an important role in vital functions of the brain. Next comes to thalamus. This thalamus plays an important role in sensory and motor signaling of the body. It plays an important role in, means it receives the stimuli as well as it transmits the stimuli. Thalamus. At the base of the thalamus, there is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. So what is the role of this hypothalamus? It secretes hypothalamic hormones. Whereas it plays an important role, suppose you are thirsty or some hungry, or how your body temperature is maintained. It is through hypothalamus. At the base of the thalamus, there is a projection that is called as hypothalamus. So this is about the forebrain. In midbrain also, here only it is present. Adjacent to the thalamus, midbrain is present. This, from the midbrain, there arises a structure called as cerebral aqueduct. It is a duct. Cerebral aqueduct. This cerebral aqueduct. Then next comes the hindbrain. Hindbrain, pons, cerebellum as well as medulla oblongata. This is pons. This is cerebellum. Medulla oblongata. Cerebellum is thrown into numerous folds. Cerebellum. This is medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata connects to the spinal cord. From brain there should be some connection to the spinal cord. That is through medulla oblongata. These are about the parts of the brain. So what is the function of the pons? Pons, it connects to different parts of the brain. This pons will connect other different regions of the brain. Then what is the use of the cerebellum? Cerebellum provides additional space for neurons to get accumulated. Means there should be some space for other neurons to enter. This is provided by cerebellum. Whereas medulla oblongata is connected from brain to spinal cord. It connects. This plays an important role in controlling the respiratory as well as heart rate, gastric reflexes, everything are controlled by this medulla oblongata. And this is the main question which is asked in the NEET. Which three parts constitutes the brain stem? Brain stem. Brain stem is contributed by midbrain, pons as well as medulla. See, this three constitutes these three parts: midbrain, pons as well as medulla. Midbrain, pons as well as medulla. These three constitute the brain stem. And in cerebrum, the important point is cerebrum is thrown into numerous folds. These numerous folds is outside, it is called as grey matter. Grey matter. Whereas on the inner surface, it is called as white matter. White matter. Outside it is thrown into folds, that is known as grey matter. Inner one, it is known as white matter. So this is about the brain. First, initially, central nervous system is divided into brain and spinal cord. In detail, if we deal with brain is the control and command system of our body. It is divided into forebrain, midbrain as well as hindbrain. Outer layer of the brain, outermost layer is called as dura mater. Middle layer, arachnoid membrane. Innermost layer, pia mater. Which is the innermost layer? Pia mater. Like that, those three you should remember in an order. It controls the voluntary as well as involuntary actions. When it is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain, they are again constitutes of three parts. Forebrain consists of cerebrum. Cerebrum constitutes the majority of the brain. It is thrown into numerous folds. Outside it is known as grey matter. Inside of the cerebrum is known as white matter. Right and left cerebral hemispheres, it is divided into right and left. Those two hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. How the two hemispheres are connected means they are connected by corpus callosum. This is about the cerebrum. It plays an important role in vital functioning of the brain. Thalamus. Thalamus plays an important role, this is thalamus, in sensory and motor signaling of the body. At the base of the thalamus, there is hypothalamus. So what this hypothalamus play an important role in body temperature as well as maintaining body temperature, as well as it plays an important role in respiration, thirst, hunger and all. Midbrain, from midbrain there arises a structure called as cerebral aqueduct. Midbrain is the smallest part of the brain. In midbrain again there are 4 swellings on the dorsal side. These 4 swellings on the dorsal side are known as cerebral quadragemina. Cerebral quadragemina. Why it's called quadra? Because 4 swellings are present. So it is called cerebral quadragemina. Next, hindbrain. Hindbrain, there are again 3 parts. Pons, cerebellum as well as medulla oblongata. What is the use of this pons? This pons helps in these pons plays a very important role in the brain. It connects the different parts of the brain. Whereas from pons there is medulla oblongata which arises. This medulla oblongata is connected to the spinal cord. From brain there should be some connection to the spinal cord, that is through medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata controls the all the functions like respiratory function, gastric reflexes and all. Whereas cerebellum, what is the use of this cerebellum? Cerebellum provides space for additional accumulation of the neurons. So this is about the different parts of the brain. They'll ask you in NEET which cerebrum is a part of. Then forebrain. Cerebellum is a part of hindbrain. Like that they'll ask you questions. What are the parts, different parts. And about grey matter as well as about white matter. Medulla oblongata as well as cerebral quadragemina. Everything these questions you should read in detail about all the parts of the brain. Next, the main question which is asked frequently is about the brainstem. Brainstem is contributed by 3 parts, that is midbrain, pons and medulla. MPM for simple you can remember, like MPL matrix and all like that. MPM you can remember. Midbrain, pons as well as medulla oblongata. So this is about the brain. Thank you.